You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia.
Guys, it's so cool having you in the flesh. And it's like a friend podcast.
It is. It's a friend cast.
I love that.
I'm just going to quickly welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we have Bel and Marcus from, can you please remind me the name of your business?
We're still trying to get it right.
Yeah, no, we keep saying the wrong thing, but it's Cultivating Your Fertility.
And you both have your separate businesses as well. And this is like your little union.
Yeah, this is like our marriage business. So it's
Yeah.
like make or break, really.
It really is. Let's see where you guys are at in like a year or two.
Well, it's funny. We
Totally.
actually, when we first got together, we talked about how we could see ourselves doing some sort of business together. And we were like, and all of a sudden it sort of just started to happen, hey?
Totally. Yeah, it's weird how that kind of happens. But we always thought we'd go into business together, not knowing what that was. But, we're a pretty good team, if we must say ourselves. Like, we do get told that a lot from people.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And I feel like it was naturally going to happen because like you both have your separate businesses that talk about very similar things.
Yeah.
And now you're just doing it together. It's like a force.
Yeah. And I think, we have such a big passion around the area, like especially, because our story is sort of similar to a lot of people. Well, Bel had a fair few health complications before we had Leo. And, our preparation going up to having Leo was, we felt was phenomenal. We worked on ourselves for about 6 months before we conceived. And then we thought, far out, and then obviously had the birth, went into, doing the home birth and everything like that, the whole space in itself. We were like, far out, this is where we want to be. So it's just exciting for us to be able to put this together to, put our formula out to the world to try and help other people.
Yeah. So it's just for everyone who hasn't come across it yet. Cultivating Your Fertility is basically like, talk us through it. I'm feeling it's like preconception and kind of, for me, I've seen some things like just misconceptions about what is conducive to being fertile and getting to the end and then holding on to the baby and getting through that and then obviously to postpartum.
Yeah. So like what we're looking at with people is we're looking for any sort of dysfunctions within their lifestyle, within their physical health, within their spiritual health, within their mental health, within their relationship that could be leading towards fertility issues. But we'll also work with people that maybe don't know they have fertility issues, but they want to be optimal for fertility.
And I think that's what we are really passionate about as well. It's not just getting pregnant, it's actually having a healthy baby, because there's so much data and statistics to show that like our health directly impacts the baby's health. And we're seeing, like, obviously I work with mums and babies as well, but autoimmune's on the rise, eczema, asthma, things like food sensitivities, you guys probably know, we're seeing it so much. And when we worked on our health preconception, not only fell pregnant really fast, but now we're looking at Leo, he's 2.5 now, no health concerns at all, like completely just like the healthiest little child that you've ever seen. And I'm like, okay, like our work that we did physically, mentally, our spiritual health has all impacted that, right? So I think that's where the passion also lies too, because there's just the big thing about just getting pregnant and like obviously the quick fixes to that of like IVF and the technology we've got there, but it's not actually getting to like the health of the child. Like it's not conducive with a healthy child and baby. So yeah, it's kind of all flows together really well, I think.
I also think like our journey together and Bel's journey is like it's a really good avenue into, certain things that I think are going wrong within this space. Like, and one of them is, an understanding of the ovulation cycle. Look at like your health prior, like really dysregulated menstrual cycle.
Disconnected from what even was my menstrual cycle, disconnected from like, even knowing when I was ovulating. It was just like bleed, shove a tampon up, get on with your life kind of thing. It was just like the average kind of girl, I suppose, and didn't even know that synced with the moons and the lunar cycle. Had no self-awareness of that. And then that kind of flows on to your health, your body, knowing your body, listening to your body. Like women are just so disconnected, and obviously disconnected from their feminine as well. Working maybe in these jobs that are and I was that person, wasn't I? I was in a corporate role, hustling, traveling from interstate all the time, literally living off 3 coffees a day, drinking wine at night to unwind.
Sounds fun, but probably just not that conducive.
Not conducive with good health. Disconnected from nature, eating a salad and then training super hard. And I thought I was healthy. And people would be like, oh, look at you, you're healthy. But I wasn't. I had heaps of hormone dysfunction. My skin was really bad. My gut was how bad was my gut when we first met?
Terrible. When we first met, Bel and I would go to bed. I was a personal trainer at the time, and I'd go to bed really early because I was up early for clients. And Bel was like, oh, that's great. I go to bed really early as well. That's awesome. And then a few weeks later, I find out she's like, oh, I only go to bed really early because I'm in so much pain that I just need to go to sleep.
Yeah, it was the only thing that would fix my gut was to literally just go to sleep. I would be just it would be in knots, sharp stabbing pains. It was bloated and just feral. And I was just I just lived with it. I thought it was normal. I'd go to the doctor and they'd be like, oh yeah, you've got IBS. There's nothing you can do, just go on the pill. That'll fix it.
Don't tell me.
It fixes everything. So
everything
why not?
apparently.
Stop. Are you taking, I just want to clarify, are you taking the piss?
No, serious.
Wow.
Absolutely serious. Yeah. It was and then your blood test results come back, just low iron, that's it. You're all good. It's sort of in your head a bit, I reckon.
Classic story. Wow.
I love
classic
that.
Story.
All in your head.
Yeah.
I can punch someone.
Legit. We hear it so much.
Yeah.
And just what a beautiful medical explanation for things that are going wrong that you can't find as a doctor, as a God-given gift to the world doctor.
Yeah.
It's just in your head.
Well, I say to my clients now, I'm you got to understand when you're going to a doctor, and I'm not totally shitting on them, but their education is around pharmacology or surgery. So it's righto, you present a problem to them that they can't fix with a pill or can't fix with surgery, then it's either all in your head or, you just got to have to move on.
Live
You know
with
what
it.
I mean? Yeah, live
Take
with
the pill. You'll be fine.
Exactly right.
Totally.
Yeah.
We say this all the time, right? It's what system are you choosing to enter because you're not going to get something different. I use my mum example all the time because she's hilarious and I love her, but she's also just funny. And I'll explain why, because she's I'm going to the doctor, I've got this. And she gets there and I'm like, okay, so what'd they say? And she's like, oh, she told me to take a pill. I'm not taking it though. I'm like, well, why are you going there? She's like, yeah, I've got something wrong with my knee. I've got to go. I'm like, well, are you going to listen to them? Because if you're not, maybe try something else. So it's always a thing okay, we're going to hospital to birth, you're going to get that. If you're going to go there, you're going to get that. And it's kind of I guess it's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
100%. And with it was interesting. Me and Bel were having a laugh the other day. We were just in bed because when we knew we were coming on this podcast, we were talking about our journey. And Bel was just super wired, super stressed. But I said, remember how you used to eat? And this is a big thing for females. Undereating, malnourished. I'm you used to just rush off to work, down a coffee, and then you would just have leftover vegetables from the day before and you'd just slap heaps of tahini on it and go to work.
I was vegetarian. Yeah.
Without trying to be.
But without trying to be, just probably trying to save money, but I ate organic though,
Yeah.
But just no protein in the diet, super undernourished. And then, lived off coffee to get me through the day.
Yeah.
And then just wonder by the end of the day, I was just completely wired. Stress hormones were maxed out.
We've all been there, haven't we?
Totally. Cycle was 21 days, average. So quite short. And I just thought that was all normal.
So did you guys decide that you were going to conceive and had the awareness of being okay, well, let's do something prior to that? Or did you try to conceive and you're oh, this isn't working? And then what was the situation there?
Effect.
No, it was actually, it was Bel's health was going downhill and we were we need to get on top of this. So we were lucky to get in touch with a guy, I'll give him a shout out, Dave O'Brien, who was, he was an expert in gut health. Yeah, so that was
amazing.
all we wanted to do. We just wanted to try and help her gut. I was trying to help her with the education I had, but couldn't get there. So we actually went and saw him, and this really changed our life because he didn't just throw supplements at a problem. It was everything about our life that we needed to look into. And what happened was we did that for Bel, and then we were like, COVID was sort of kicking off, and we wanted to go traveling. We were like, okay, we're not going to travel, so let's like move on to the next thing we want to do, and that was to start a family. So then we were like, righto, I'll do it as well. Like I'll get myself into as good a health as I can. And so we worked together to get both our health right before we wanted to conceive down the track, but we wanted to get everything in order.
Yeah, because we just knew, we were like, this isn't right. We shouldn't be feeling like this, in life, and then imagine feeling like this and then trying to bring a baby into the world as well. Like
very obvious we're not healthy.
Yeah, and we were the typical healthy, like gym healthy, but like I said, not actually healthy.
Yeah.
So good to have the foresight to do that, because definitely all my children did not get that.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like the health journey kind of started as I fell pregnant or like had Willow.
Yeah.
And that's when like I really switched into health gear and like, so none of my kids got like a full cleansed, healthy, nourished growing environment. Sorry,
Next
all
time,
of
babe.
you. I love you.
Baby number 6. You got this.
You got time.
But it actually triggers it.
It does trigger it
Having in the
anyway.
family triggers the healthy lifestyle. Or like, adversity like we went through with Bel is what triggers the change that you
It's
need
not
to
a
make.
bad thing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Your journey's your journey.
Whatever order, it doesn't really matter as long as you're conscious, right? And you can start to implement changes. But so we did like 6 months, I'd say,
Yep.
of, I had a parasite, I had severe intestinal permeability, like you guys might know, leaky gut. My, like I said, period was really out. I had a lot of like nutrient deficiencies, undernourished, etc.
Undereating.
Yep. And obviously...
And highly stressed, like highly wired corporate life. I was the same as a personal trainer. Like I just thought, it's funny, I just thought I was a really energetic person, but what I didn't realise is I was just pretty much living off adrenaline and cortisol.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Still to this day, haven't learnt my lesson.
I'm going to be peeling you off the ground at some point. I just know.
Yeah, we're still working on it. Like that is a work in progress because that is wired into us.
Totally.
But
high achieving kind of,
Yeah.
and personality types.
There's nothing wrong with that
No.
at all.
As long
it's
as you're
just
kind of aware.
having your environment and everything set up to keep that
Mate,
keep
this
that
is why
rolling.
your placenta bowl was so perfect. So it's got its positives.
she's a perfectionist.
Yeah.
100%.
I am.
Are you also a Virgo?
I'm actually a Leo, but
Hey.
I have. I think I have something in my. I have something in my chart that's Virgo.
just like
Yeah.
So then, once you guys keeping on track, stop interrupting me with your star signs, please. So once you were like, okay, we're good, 6 months. Did you conceive like straight away?
Yeah, we did. And I think this is what I want to talk about as well. It's like the spiritual side, but also just like the awareness. So doing something like we've done, a lot of people be like, oh, it's just because you did like, you just did a million supplements and you made some dietary changes. But like it's doing that kind of like hard, I guess, would you say it's like a hard kind of time that you've got to get through? Like you kind of strip back from, like going out for dinners, going and drinking on the weekends. Like you kind of strip back your life, right, to like the bare essentials, just like getting into nature, like, getting off your screen. It's kind of like a whole lifestyle thing, right? But through that, I became really aware of my body for the first time, and I started to like chart my cycle, track everything, notice cervical mucus, things that just like I hadn't done, but I feel like was because of the journey that I'd gone on with my health. And you were the same, obviously, just being really aware of like hormones and like what we're putting into our body and how that affects us. Then I was like really all over it when I was to get pregnant, like happened first go. I obviously knew my cervical mucus. I was like, this is the day. And first time. But I think it was everything that I did in terms of that. It wasn't just like, oh, I got my gut health good and then I conceived straight away.
Well, it's so much more, right? It's like, and like you said, you had started having a relationship with your own cervical mucus. Like how many women out there have never even like touched it and put it on their fingers and like moved it? Like that would actually gross a lot of people out.
Totally.
Like there's zero, like that disembodiment, disassociation with your own womb. That's one small thing. And then obviously once you like let go of a lot of things and really unplug from all the things, you can actually feel out what's happening and what you need and what you require. And, you know, like there's a lot there.
Totally. Felt so much more embodied, in touch. And then that goes on to obviously your pregnancy. And I was like, well, I'm not having scans. I'm, going to birth at home. Wanted to go against the grain because I like felt so empowered because I'd taken control of my health. So yeah, it kind of is that flow-on effect. And I guess that's why we're so passionate about like the whole thing as a picture, because it's like then when you have the baby, you're like really in touch with like, you know, your breastfeeding journey is a lot easier. Your if your child does get sick, you're not in the panic to go to the doctor and get like a quick fix. Like you're just like embodied in every way.
You're probably not in the rush back to work. You're much more probably attentive to your child's, you know, little signs that you're picking up in the first few months and stuff like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
You're in touch with your nervous system, so then you realise how that impacts your baby and, you know, all of that.
Amazing.
Those laws of nature.
Totally.
Turns me on. But yeah, no, that's amazing. So I guess like I'm so fascinated to know like, have you guys worked with clients? I'm just going to go straight into it. Like, let's go hard and fast.
Love it.
Like, have you ever been with a client who's like, I've tried everything and I've been told that like I've endo or PCOS or like any other tubular like disorder. And I actually find it funny that like the World Health Organization uses the terminology disorder for like every single reason for infertility. And it's never like someone's had a hysterectomy or something. It's like a disorder of the tubes, a disorder of the thing, a disorder of that, which is like, it's not, what am I trying to say? It's like not, I don't have the word, but it's not like the end. It's like, that's permanent. It's not permanent. It's like something's happening or something's happened or you're adapting to something. It's not something that is actually like your problem, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. It's like, it's something that can change.
Exactly. Yeah. And a real easy. It's like a headache, right? Oh, gone. It's not like this is you, your identity. And so I'm so fascinated to hear like...
But I feel like too, you know, the medical industry needs to sell it as an identity because that's how we get people on medications for the rest of their life.
On the drip.
You are spot on.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of moolah to be
But
made.
anyone that's done like ART or, you know, walked down that path of like several years of IVF know that it's insane. It's incredibly painful. It's incredibly exhausting. And I'm sure that is not something that most people actually choose and want to do. But they feel like, oh, this is my only option.
Totally.
So like breaking down that, is it, I want to tell people like, okay, that's not your only option. Because there's people out there who have worked with you and or your people. And, you know, we've spoken to people on our show who are like, in the industry of ART and IVF and studying that. And most times those specialists and clinics never refer to
holistic practice.
Not even just that, but just like, hey, do you have the fundamentals in place?
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
How often do you do this? What's this? Like, where are you at? It's like, okay, cool. You've tried for a year. You're 35. You must be infertile. ART, here we go.
Yeah, unexplained infertility.
Exactly.
You just got unlucky, mate.
Yeah.
That's very insensitive, Keshia. You're going to edit that out.
I'm going to leave all of this in.
But like, yeah. So like, have you worked with people who feel like that's where they're at?
Yeah. Do you want me to take it or
Go for it.
Yeah, we've got a favourite, Jacinta. Can we just say that? Yeah.
Do a shout out to her.
Do a shout out to her because she's due now.
Yeah.
She came to us. She'd actually fallen pregnant a couple of times with miscarriage and then stopped falling pregnant, then went to IVF, no luck. And so we worked with her. And the big thing I want to put out with us is what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the body into a safe space to conceive, okay? Because if the body doesn't feel safe, it's not in a position to conceive. It's similar to like you're not in a, if you're not safe and you're not in a parasympathetic state, you're not in a position to digest your food, okay? So we're looking at ways in which maybe you're not in a safe environment for you to actually fall pregnant. So with her, like we do a few things that are more like scientific. So we'll look into like blood work. We tended to find a few dysfunctions going on that probably people wouldn't like look at in the medical realm. For example, I found her thyroid markers were quite high. So there was a little bit of hyperthyroidism going on. Not diagnosing or anything, but the thyroid was overactive. So I was like, okay, So there's a little bit to work on here to try and support that.
But possibly in medical ranges, that would have been normal.
Yeah. So they would never have looked at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we saw a few things going on within like her gut health, and we were able to work on that. So, and then there was obviously nutrient deficiencies and things like that. So then we put together like a plan to overcome that. So one thing that people, I suppose, don't understand is like the connection between, and this is where we're a little bit different, is like between their gut health, their hormonal health, and their conception. So we were able to see some of those like microbial imbalances possibly going on. We're able to fix those, or help her to fix those. I shouldn't say we fix them, but she does it herself.
Yeah.
We're also then able to like look into a lot of the things she was doing within her lifestyle to try and help her to get to a safe space. And it was what I loved about her one was her period was all over the place. So it was what, sometimes 40 days,
Yep.
sometimes 35, then it'd be
Skipping
55.
skipping ovulation as well.
Yeah, and then we helped her to learn about her ovulation and everything like that. And Bel said to her, she was like teaching her how to track her mucus, and she was talking to Bel about it. And Bel was like, "Look, there's more we want to do with you to try and make sure that like we put you into a safe space so that it's a successful pregnancy." She's like, "But if you were to conceive like now, you'll most likely fall pregnant." And she didn't listen to us, and she did. And
we love that she didn't listen to us.
Yeah, we love that
She
she
just
didn't
went
listen
for
to
it.
us. And
Because we were like, maybe another month, but this is the day. Because it was the first time she'd ovulated, and I was looking at her chart, and I was like, yeah, today's your day, love. Like, go for it. And
she's telling you about the
Get on
mucus,
it.
the cervical mucus as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, so good. And like, she was like, yeah, it's all right. And I'm like, okay, so hypothetically, if you were to have sex today, it's your day, love. Yeah, she got pregnant straight away.
Oh my gosh. After
After IVF.
Yeah, years.
wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she would have got a bit of a harrowing kind of,
Diagnosis from the medical industry.
yeah.
Well, you guys put it right. Like in the sense of IVF, it's a big business, yeah, and infertility is a big problem. Like, and it's
On the
we actually
rise.
talked about it before. Yeah, on the rise. We talked about it before. We're very disconnected from nature, and like we'd be really honest. Like, look at us now. We're on a podcast.
Yeah, but it's the daytime. We're not doing it at night, people. We're actually being very smart.
But like as you know, like we're getting more and more disconnected, and that's going to be it's going to have a bigger effect. So how do we start to like sort of reverse that cycle within the cycle? Yeah, like what are the things that we can put in place that can start to reduce the impact that our lifestyles are having on us?
Yeah, and I don't think ART and that industry has any intentions of doing other than accelerating. I mean, I think I read before that in 2020, the industry was worth $14.5 billion, and they're projecting that by 2030, it's going to be worth $33 billion.
Well, the government's going to start paying for it.
So there is absolutely, that doesn't give me any indication that they're like, we're hoping to reduce this and make less money by, it's just not happening.
No.
Yeah.
So it's really about, okay, well, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
What's the answer here? And like, how do we, I mean, it's very simple. Like we just become more animalistic and return to what is actually for us, and magic happens.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's just getting through that and breaking down the layers and the conditioning and reconstructing the way we think and we feel and we live and are together. And also for our kids, like we've all got kids. We're all about to have another baby. And those... Yeah, but you have sympathy things, right? Like we were talking about the other day, like all our husbands put on a little bit of weight when we're pregnant. Like that is like a sympathetic weight
He's
gain.
linked in.
No.
Yeah.
So that's what's
Toby
going
just
on with
gets
me.
grey.
No, I knew that.
Oh, you haven't heard sympathetic weight loss?
I do. I know it.
Your hormones are rubbing off on me. I need to lose some weight for footy.
But yeah, I mean, we can talk about, and argue how women can get pregnant today. But the thing that really gets me is like, between us, you might have a daughter soon, but you will have a child that's going to conceive a child at some point. And it breaks my heart to think that by then their chances of being fertile is like zero.
And it's something that we just spoke to Kira about. Like when it comes to fertility, and I'm going to hound on this a little bit because obviously we are not people who are struggling ourselves, but fertility is such a good indicator of health, and whether you
100%.
choose to procreate or not, and this is how I feel about my children, whether they choose to procreate or not, I know that if they are fertile, they are healthy. Like, that is one of my indicators that I have given the best start in life. So it is really important for everyone to be aware of. And even if you are a young, like, because we do have quite a few young girls listening to the podcast, if you are like, I do not want a family, or I'm not ready to start a family, or whatever, doesn't matter. You still want to be fertile. Like, that is
the ultimate ultimate demonstration of health.
Exactly. Oh, look, one of them. I feel like I know a few people who could tweak here and there.
This is actually interesting to what we were talking about with one of our friends was talking about, like, how there's this comparison, especially with women who can't get pregnant, and they'll be like, but how come drug addicts can get pregnant, you know? Yeah. And we had like a little bit of a discussion.
He had a bit of a hypothesis, which sort of segue into, I think a big reason why people are struggling. But he sort of said, like, I wonder if, when a drug addict is high, they're in a blissful state, they're in a loving state, even though they're not healthy, but their soul's in a loving state at that moment in time where they're actually probably welcoming in fertility, where I'm not saying it's healthy, like, I just don't. And I thought it's an interesting hypothesis because so many of us are like overstressed now, and like the feminine masculine polarity is getting bigger and sort of mixed up and everything like that. And, we're trying to masculize females.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing, and then feminize males. And then I think we're seeing a massive struggle there, because what we've got to understand with a female, if we overstress them and we overstress the brain, we're going to affect hormonal process, and it's such a delicate process that we've got to care for.
So you're just saying, take more drugs, be less stressed.
Yeah,
in that blissful state.
Yeah.
Guys,
Please
welcome to Cultivating Your Fertility, where these guys are just going to give you cocaine and send you off. And I'm here for that.
I know.
No.
It's such a
do the work, but then you know how they say, and then just relax, which is so hard to just say, relax. I obviously do sympathise with that, because it's not that easy when you've like been trying and trying and trying. But there obviously is like method to the madness of it, right? Because like we aren't relaxed in our day-to-day generally. Like,
but what does relaxation look like? Totally. It's not just stress-free.
Yeah.
Like, relaxation is being one with your environment.
Yeah.
It's sleeping when the sun goes down and waking up when the sun goes up. Like, it's
often just deconstructing your entire existence and then building it back to what is actually
needed.
And that is no walk in the park.
No.
There's also like reparenting as well. You need to do like reparenting the patterns that you've created yourself, that a lot of us are we lack a little bit of self-worth, so our career becomes our self-worth to try and make up for that mother or father wound, and that sort of impacts and overloads our brain, especially like the feminine, because we've got to remember with the hormonal process, it starts in the brain. People talk about their ovaries and the testes, but this messaging comes from the brain. So if we're overloading the brain and we're overloading that message in the bloodstream, we're going to affect fertility. Yeah, so it's huge.
Yeah, it is. And I was thinking we should talk about a segue into that conversation that we were having before we started.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought it up, because I really, really wanted to, and I didn't know how.
I was like, okay, I don't want to talk about any of this boring stuff anymore. No, I'm just joking. I want to talk about this wild conspiracy that we've just...
So children. And because, something that we've been looking at, all being parents, and I think there was something posted recently. I think it was actually a meme that I posted where it's like that screaming woman, like, and it was some headline.
Probably just bagging our own parenting.
Yeah. but it was like, it was some headline. So do not quote me here. But it was talking about how girls are experiencing menstruation earlier and earlier, and puberty earlier and earlier. You've got like 9-year-olds with like, is it called a breast bud? Like when you start to develop breasts.
It seems like synthetic puberty almost. Like when I think about it, I think it feels synthetic.
Yeah, periods so young. And you guys had an epic little
theory
on this. So please.
Well, I can't say it's our theory.
It's not our theory.
Learnt theory.
A learnt theory.
Learnt theory.
Yeah, that we've learnt recently. You take it away.
You sure?
Yep, go for it.
So this one theory was, I don't know if it's actually theory or it's actually been scientifically proven, but that, the presence of a female needs to be in the presence of her father. And if she's not in the presence of her father enough, and then she's in the presence of another non-related male very often,
who is past puberty as well.
Is past puberty, who is fertile. His body odor will, his body odor will then trigger her to start menstruating.
like the pheromones.
Yeah, the
Earlier.
pheromones are a little bit like they don't know enough about that yet.
Because that's more like subconscious.
Yeah.
But like even just the body odor, and it not necessarily even being like for like a long period of time either. Like it could just be like a few
Like
hours.
once a week or something.
Yeah.
And in a society where we're seeing 1 in 2 couples divorce and children being brought up with men who aren't their parents, biological parents, I mean, it's I could take that somewhere real dark. Can I?
Sure, babe.
Go for it.
I might remove this later. So, even when we're looking at donor sperm and that kind of thing, like if it's not the biological father, is that what we're looking at? Like, I mean, we probably have to try and find these studies. But, and that's bringing on these younger girls' menstrual cycles and, ability to procreate, I guess, purely for the fact that you're in close proximity with someone who can. So that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Super interesting. And there's obviously a lot more that goes to it. Like you ladies would be well aware of like what goes into conventional meat, the whole issue with hormones and what that can do. Like if you're just eating.
Yeah, like the endocrine disruptors in everything we have, like our plastics, the fragrances, the deodorants, all that sort of stuff with phthalates and xenoestrogens. Of course, we're going to see some sort of hormonal disruption. And
do we know why that would bring on a cycle earlier in life?
Yeah, because they mimic estrogen production. So then we've got high amounts of estrogen in the body, which is not our own production of estrogen, but it's a synthetic
So it is
form.
like a synthetic, unnatural adaptation to our bodies.
I wonder if that would bring on an early cycle, but whether the fertility is there or not.
Well, that's what I was asking earlier. Is I wonder if that just equals the ability to conceive. Like, could a 9-year-old really conceive?
if they're menstruating, they could.
Yeah.
Because if there's if menstruation's taking place, ovulation is taking place. Yeah.
The other thing is melatonin. So like I only just learnt this, was that, kids produce melatonin all throughout the day, and then as you get older, you only start to produce it at night. So, you think about like lights, and, like as
Blue
normally
light.
what you would want is as the sun goes down, we kick in melatonin. As the sun comes up, we kick up cortisol. That's that hormonal cycle. So, cortisol's ready for action, melatonin's ready for slowing down. So you would wonder what the blue lights, think about the iPads, think about our artificial lighting, like the impact that possibly has on our circadian rhythm and melatonin production, possibly as melatonin drops earlier now with kids, where then what it does is it starts to, because that blocks adrenotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. So if that's lowering, we're going to start to kick that off, which is going to then kick off the menstrual cycle. So,
Well, it's interesting, right? Because like the whole argument and something that we fear is like our kids won't be fertile because that's what they're telling us is like, this is what it's looking like.
Yeah.
But then we've got the other side of this argument, which is like girls are getting their cycle at 9 and becoming like essentially more fertile. It's kind of like hard to understand if that's a potential positive thing or it's like...
No, it's not a positive thing.
It's not a positive thing because even things like obesity can obviously bring on the onset of your menstruation, earlier.
Yeah.
So, that I don't think is healthy. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's like it's starting earlier and then are we going into menopause a lot earlier?
Yeah, like where's the spectrum? What's the adaptation?
Or it's like the conventional method of treating that, put your child on the pill earlier, and then that's
Totally.
like leading, and takes you down that wormhole. So
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah.
but
Well,
who
you've
will
got-
fix it? So
You've got your egg reserve, and you're constantly like every cycle you're flicking away another egg. Yeah. So the earlier you menstruate,
Yeah.
probably the harder it's going to be to fall pregnant when you actually want to fall pregnant.
I think this is an interesting segue is age and pregnancies, because there is a truth that if you're going to wait until you're 40 to have a child, that's also probably not as conducive to having a baby in your early 20s. And we're not really seeing that. People are choosing to have babies
A lot later.
a lot later.
And it sort of comes into what we were talking about earlier, like workforce, money,
Hustle
more
culture.
things. You know what I mean? Exactly right. And it's
Need to have the house first before I have the babies.
Yeah.
Like all of this
Yeah.
kind of, modern society.
have you guys listened to any of Stephen J. Shaw's work?
No.
He is incredible. He created the documentary Birth Gap,
yep.
which is just looking at the decline, like vastly declining birth rates all around the world. And he talks about just like the cultural shift that this is going to cause of what's going to happen. So at the moment, total population is increasing. It's because our lifespan is a whole lot longer, but because their birth rates are declining so vastly, I think in some places in the world, like by 50%, I think Japan is one of those, you're going to see this aging population, then obviously a mass drop off in total population.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how we live longer and how we really should make a cultural, like an intentional cultural shift around like this narrative that we have been pumping into especially young girls, that go to college, get your degree, start your career, and then you can start a family. When really what we should be doing is encouraging girls while you're fertile and while you're in the best years for creating a family, create a family, because you can have multiple careers now. Like we are living so long that you have got all the time in the world for a career, but you don't, like biologically, we don't have all the time in the world to start a family. So the cultural messaging should now be more, if you are looking at starting a family, this is what we should be doing out of school, and like cultivating that. And then and then putting the support in place too, because obviously there is a lot of cultural mismatch where, one, we kind of need people to have babies now. But two, there's no support for women to get back into the workforce and to go and get their degrees and to start their like careers.
Our social
afterwards.
constructs just don't support that at all. It's
But
like we need...
It's like this, he's like proposing this huge shift that if we can support these women, these young girls like in their 20s.
Not 9-year-olds.
Not the 9-year-olds.
Funny you get into your 30s and now like 20-year-olds are young girls.
Oh, that's where we're at. I'm geriatric at the moment, so so we should be encouraging these girls, if family life is what they want, this is what they should be pursuing first, and then there should be the supports in place so that once they've created their families and they've been there for their children's childhoods and they've been able to properly support their families, well, then you have got more than 2 full careers ahead of you, and you can go. He argues that he's still studying at school and he's still learning and constantly evolving, and he's like, I'm almost in grandchildren age, so it's really beautiful.
I actually feel like it's even better starting a career after you have a baby, because you feel like more embodied. You're like, know what you want a little bit more. Like I only started studying nutrition once I had Leo, and I feel like he was like the reason why I wanted to go out and do that. So it's like, it's kind of cool, because like as a mother, you're reborn, right? And then it's like you get to rebirth your career.
There's actually, that reminds me, another podcast I was listening to, it was a Louise Perry podcast, who I love and adore. I forget.
I feel like you're just dropping all these people that we really want on our podcast. Like, if you're listening.
Yes, if you're listening, please, we love you. But the lady she was interviewing was talking about like menopausal women are a force to be reckoned with, and we just don't tap into that source. Like, these are women who have most likely held a career while raising children. Like, the amount of energy and output they've got, and then all of a sudden they don't have children to look after, they don't have families to raise, they don't have, like, that is such a huge effort. And then, like, we should be tapping into them as a resource, because they've got this drive, this urge, like all of these instincts that
It's
go
actually,
into nurturing and into, I guess, putting that into society and into their career.
It's actually interesting you say that, because I know so many postmenopausal women who are just diving off the cliff. Like, a lot of those women are really unhappy. They're really, like, they've lost sight of what they're doing, what their mission is. They no longer have children at home. They may not even have anything to do with their grandchildren, or, like, it's the hormone thing. And if you look at it from the lens of, like, your bleed, your childbearing age, that's your initiation to this part of life that is not recognised at all in society. It's more like, oh, well, here's HRT and like whatever else. But it's like, imagine that.
Imagine if we could shift the culture to being,
and then
like,
we start our
that is
career
your
with
power.
all of that, like, force behind you, like wisdom and that. Yeah. So the point of this rant was, if you're 20, now's your chance.
Well,
But start thinking about it. Like, it's so important to be thinking about it already at 20. Not conceiving straight away, but thinking about it and
Priming
putting into
yourself.
place. Yeah. How is my life going to look? And I mean, children at the moment in schools are just taught to absolutely fear your fertility. Like, that is the scariest thing ever, because if you fall pregnant, you've ruined your life. And so, and then, I mean, and this happened to me at school, they just drive that career that, like, you need to be academically achieving everything first. But then, if we can actually at school be like, okay, this is when you're most fertile, and when you're looking at having a family, these are the best years to do it. And I'm not by any means disregarding. Like, I know there are so many women here in their 40s having babies and, like,
Killing it.
fucking killing it. You look at them, you're like, how are you even like, really though? But it's still, I mean, if we're talking on a whole world level, like, we want people to be thinking about it in their 20s and starting to plan for that. And then maybe even planning for, like, a 10-year, you're not doing any work. And then what are you going to do in your career? Like, what are you going to study? You can go to university at any age.
Actually, I have a really sweet story. This lady I know, she got pregnant when she was 18, I think. And her parents, she was at law school when she got pregnant to her partner, who is her husband now. And her family were like, have an abortion. I may be adding that in, but I'm pretty sure that's the story. Classic story. I bet it is, though.
Don't you love when you're not sure if you're butchering something or not?
I'm dramatising this for our own benefit. And her family were like, don't do this. This is going to ruin your career, blah, blah, blah. And then she went on to have recently just had her 5th baby. She's a successful lawyer, has like this beautiful dream life, and everyone in her family's like, oh my God, you're living the life. Like, how did you do that? You've achieved so much. Like,
Out of spite.
because you all told me I couldn't.
Fueled the belly fire.
But like, she actually, like, she's a mature woman. She's like, has this wisdom. She has this incredible, like, big family. She has her fertility. She's successful in what we would call, like, women's, right to work and equality and all that shit. Shouldn't say shit, but like, it's the whole picture is like, wow, that's goals, right? But it's so discouraged at the start.
And she would have been so frowned upon at 19 having the baby. And
ostracized, most likely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Also, you can, we're all doing so much. Yeah. Like, you can simplify things. And a lot of health is coming back to simplifying your life and bringing it back and not doing too much. If she was just concentrating on 2 things through that time, simplified her life and just went, I'm going to be a really good mother and I'm going to get through my studies, rather than being distracted by a million different things, which we all are, like, oh, I should be traveling. I should be doing this. Really? Should people be getting on a plane and flying across the earth? I don't know if we should be doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's another, what's that?
I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, well, we just did it last year. So, but you get my point, we've got like a million different things that we're meant to be doing via, the social sort of programming.
Norms and
Yeah.
programming.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot that we could pluck out and replace.
Disseminate.
Yeah, and you think about like mental health and stuff like that. It's, you know, a lot of the time it's coming back to simple things and like gratitude and things like, you know, waking up and looking at the sun and being happy and grateful for those things. But all of a sudden, like, we need to have the best car, the best house, like all these materialistic things. It's so bad for our health, really. Yeah.
We
And
do that in so many ways, don't we? Like, even if I'm going to do that, I need to have the best gratitude journal. I need to have the best active wear. I need to have the best shit. And you're like, no, you still got it wrong. It's like, you actually don't even need it.
Just make sure that your active wear doesn't have chemicals in your gynae area and you're good.
Yeah.
Wool and cotton preferably.
Hey, very good point. You know, these are little things that people aren't aware of. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
it's death by 1,000 cuts in today's day and age. You know, especially with fertility. You know, we're on a podcast now, but EMF. You know, like people. We actually talked before about. I think the person you just had on who lived in nature, no health conditions, lives in an apartment on the 9th floor. All of a sudden, starts getting health complications. You know, so you're totally disconnected from the earth in a different electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah. Yeah, and we say stress, like people think, oh, like stress from like work or money or like these things, but it's just lifestyle stresses, right? Like chemicals, you know, things that we're coming into contact, toxic people in our life, past traumas, like it is all stress, overstimulation. Yeah, that is all stress. So yeah, it's interesting once you sort of like, really get simple with things, how much easier it is to live a healthy life and obviously conceive a healthy baby as well.
I suppose the challenging thing is those, like the lifestyle that we've created from when we were young, how our parents fed us, how we lived, it creates like physical dysfunctions that are hard to overcome without like hard work. And, you know, there's certain things like certain interventions that you need to try and create. But the basis is coming back to a more natural lifestyle that's in sync with the sun, within nature, as much as you can. And I suppose that's what we're trying to bridge the gap in. So is like, you know, obviously, you know, IVF, I was about to say the EMF thing. The IVF industry is all about like making a mass amount of money. It's pretty obvious, you know, they're not necessarily, like you talked about, they're not trying to get anyone healthier and get them more fertile. What we're trying to do is we're trying to look at what are the behaviours, what are the things that you are doing in your everyday life that is causing the dysfunction. Then we're going to simultaneously work on those while we're actually physically trying to heal the dysfunction that's manifested from the poor behaviour. Yeah, and like we said, that can come from a million different things within your lifestyle. And sometimes it can be overwhelming to hear about like the amount of things in our life. Like we talked about like tap water. You know what I mean? Like none of us drink tap water anymore, but people will be like, what do you mean? What's wrong with our tap water? I go to Bali and you can't drink it at all, you know, but the reason you can drink ours is because it's got such harsh chemicals in it that it kills off every microorganism in there.
Just a question to anyone who's wondering why they can't drink tap water. Would you drink the pool water?
That's exactly right. And you know what people don't know? Chlorine is a corrosive, you know, so like, they may be like, oh yeah, but it's per dose. I don't care. It's a corrosive and I'm drinking it.
And over time, what's that doing to you? Yeah, per dose.
Yeah.
But like we're drinking it for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of like our practice is like, you know, we're very big on like the microorganisms within our whole ecosystem and trying to balance those out to create harmony. So we've got to try and take away all these things that are possibly, or is it unbalancing them? Yeah. So if we think about like a rainforest, it works like all the animals in there work
Beautiful
simultaneously
ecosystem.
together. Exactly right. Some are living in the trees, some are living on the grass. If I go down and start chopping down the environment, those ones that live in the trees, they're going to get overgrown by the ones that are on the ground. Yeah. And it's going to create an imbalanced ecosystem and it's going to fall apart. That's how we're seeing the body and we're trying to create harmony within it so that it's ready to.
And I think the other thing too, like in this work, I would say that fertility is just a bonus because what the goal should be is sustainability in our health, right? It's like, what do you want to be when you're 50? Like what kind of life do you want to be living when you're 50? Because sure, you could go get ART, go do IVF, whatever. You might get your baby, you might. But that's not going to mean your baby's going to be well. It doesn't mean that you're going to be well. It doesn't mean that you're actually going to get anywhere. It's just you're forcing something to come from an environment that's screaming so fucking loud at you, being like, I can't do this because of all of this. And so you're just kind of forcing it. And
Totally.
it doesn't mean that your baby's going to be okay. It doesn't mean you're just taking a shortcut.
But even you yourself, like say, like, I mean, your baby could be absolutely perfect and fine, but this is something
Most
that
likely it will appear to be most perfect baby you've ever seen.
Yeah. But it's something that I've been grappling with a lot, having lived a martyr life for so long, is like, do I want to be there for my grandchildren? Do I want to be there to see my great-grandchildren? And what do I want to be when I hit menopause and when I'm in my 70s and when I'm in my 90s? Like, I don't want to be a burden on my kids or on society. I definitely don't want to be in a freaking home. So it's like if right now you're going through infertility, like looking at that, and I mean, I haven't been through infertility, but I did have skin conditions a year and a half ago, like looking at those very clear indicators of, okay, something in my environment's not right or something I'm doing is not right, I need to shift, change, whatever, is you want to deal with that now, regardless of wanting a baby right now, regardless of any of that, because if you then go on to have a baby or you've got children, in my case, you want to be there. You want to be able-bodied. You want to be there. You want to have it's not just about longevity, but it's about quality of life as well. So like all things that you want to take care of now when you're getting those, like, and I'd say infertility is probably a minor alarm bell.
It's a snapshot in the bigger picture.
Yeah. It's then you've probably had symptoms screaming at you, like whispering at you for years, right? And we've just ignored them and ignored them and ignored them. And now you're like, okay, I'm ready to have a baby, and it doesn't happen for you. But like you've had all of these things kind of, popping up through your life.
We actually talked about this the other day, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, I just had I had an off day. I was quite anxious, really frustrated, emotionally not stable, I reckon. And I said to
welcome to my life.
Yeah.
It's me every day.
Yeah, but it's I believe that's the whisper.
Yeah.
Like that's the whisper. Hey, something's not right. You're not
balanced.
You're not balanced here. You're maybe not expressing how you're feeling. Maybe you're putting things to the side. Possibly. Here's your whisper. Okay, whether you listen to it or not, it's going to become a scream soon. You know what I mean?
And to be honest, he's been dealing with me through this pregnancy. So, I don't blame him.
Hey,
do you know every single husband is
Brenton
listening
and Todd
to
would
this?
be the same.
Yeah.
Like, whoever's bringing a baby in this year, like, whoa, if you survive this,
relationship survives this.
there's not much we can't get through. It's just like everything just up in the surface. And while it's there, I'll just drag you with a collar through the gravel. Like, that's me. Anyway, I speak for myself. I know you too, but...
Anger, it's raging. Has been
rage.
So you've all felt like that?
Yeah. And we're not the only ones. We've spoke to multiple pregnant people who have just been dragged them through.
Wow.
But can I also just, I pay astrology out so much, but then I will go back to it because I also
when it suits.
believe it.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah.
What's the stars saying?
But every Chinese year, we're bringing in dragons, and I feel like all the women bringing in a dragon right now is, we've got it. Yeah, but also, what did they say about dragons?
Dragon babies are really
chill.
calm,
They're
chill
calm.
in their own.
But they're just making us rage.
They're making us rage.
We have
so
to
they can be
pave
calm,
the way.
right?
I'm happy for that.
Yeah. We got to.
It's going to pay off, darling.
We got to get it all
Only got a few
out.
months.
Yeah.
We're nearly there.
No, I actually think it'll simmer down. Like I'm so good now.
Yeah.
So I reckon you've got a couple of weeks left in you, mama.
I thought I was.
And then it's reappeared.
It's reared its ugly dragon head.
I won't
No,
speak
you've
too
got a double
soon.
head.
I reckon you've calmed down.
I think I have a little bit too. Yeah, calmed down a little bit. But
Super emotional though.
Oh God, yeah.
But this is all part of, I feel like, again, preparing you
It's
for motherhood
initiation.
and parenthood, fatherhood as well. It starts preconception. Obviously, you're both making that decision and, spiritually being open to it, welcoming your babies in. And then obviously going through, this portal through pregnancy and how you show up for each other and support each other. And even if it's not perfect, but are you working on things while you're pregnant to then be like, okay, cool. Because, otherwise then you get to the baby's here, shit shows up, right? Like
Yeah.
things are going to start to.
Well, the baby needs you to be who it needs you to be.
Totally.
And it's
and
going
are you
to...
listening to the baby, or are you just doing whatever the hell you want to do?
I think something really interesting that Michelle Palacia had brought up in one of our things is that like these babies, they don't want to come through your shit. And when I heard that, I was like, maybe that's why I'm raging. So that like you're not suppressing, like it's coming.
It's getting
like
it out.
It's awful for everyone around me. And apologies to my children. If you listen to this when you're 30 and you're like, oh, this is why. But like, it comes out so that they don't have to then carry that with them. And
it's not suppressed in your body, and that's a trauma in itself, right?
Exactly.
Well, you have to level out because pregnancies level up because pregnancy is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's so easy in hindsight. And then the baby comes out and you're like, whew.
Oh, so I'm like, no. Give me a baby any day. Birth and baby any day. Pregnancy is killing me.
Spiritually, babe.
What I really love to chat to you about, since we have a couple in here, and this episode will be released, the episode I'm about to refer to will be released before this one is, but we spoke to Noelle Covery, and...
Do you know Noelle?
No.
She's just...
You've got a lot of people for us to look into.
Yeah, we need to
she's
look
just
into
like a
some
little angel
You'd know
human.
her. You'd know her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful human. Anyway, but she actually spoke about one of the most important things she did for birth prep was get her relationships in order.
Yeah.
And I wonder if within your coaching you talk about the dynamics of a relationship and the emotional, I guess, nurturing.
so
that
glad.
Were you reading my mind then?
Literally.
We bring this up.
Yeah, this is a big part, and I think this is why we love working together as a couple as well, because we really, and obviously love working with couples. Like we don't just work with couples. A lot of the time it is generally the mum, but when it is the couple, we're like, yes, this is where like we can have the biggest impact. Because obviously he can bring that masculinity and fatherhood element, and I can bring the mother element and the feminine. So we are big around that spiritual side of things. Like, are you actually welcoming in a baby? Because what we see a lot of the time is mum wants the baby, but she's just doing like the normal things. Like she's not kind of, how would you say? Like she's not really embodying what it means to be a mother, right? And then, or what we see as well is it's like the mum really just wants it, but the dad is just like off.
Hesitating.
He's absent, hesitating, just working, do whatever, don't even look into my health, I'm fine, it's you kind of thing. And we're like, we see this imbalance, right? And we're like, that needs to be one of the first things that you guys work on. And I guess that's where our program's so good, because if they do go on that journey together, it does mean that they go through adversity, healing and leveling up their health. They kind of have to work as a team, right? So, yeah. Have I explained that good?
Yeah, well, like for example, we're working with a couple at the moment. We just had a meeting with them this morning, and it was really good because some of the parts of our program can be challenging, like challenging as individually, challenging as couples. And as you know, in relationships, like there'll be things that maybe the male doesn't understand about the female and can't show empathy.
Really? I haven't experienced that.
So yeah, it's
When they just think we're like, why do you guys cry so much? Yeah. Like it's awful.
Yeah,
Totally.
Well, there's things that we will never understand.
Yeah.
But if we can sort of just hold space, if males can learn to hold space, that would be much better, because we just get so uncomfortable under the those emotional periods. Like, and all we want to do is we're solution based. We're like, all right, we're going to try and create
very
a solution.
pragmatic.
Exactly
Fix
right.
the problem.
Yeah.
These are the solutions. And we're just like, I don't want a solution. I
Yeah.
just want to cry.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, this morning was good. Like this, the guy, he's going through a challenging time, and he was like having certain symptoms were popping up, and he said to his partner, he's like, "Oh God, now I really understand what you're going through. Like, I'll never ever like what did he say? Like you'll."
Yeah, like I'll know. Like I can
Every time
actually
you're going through
sympathise
this,
with this.
I'll be with you.
Yeah.
I'll be with you for this. You know what I mean? And I was like, that is the perfect start, because like that's you coming together as a team, and you're about to embark on parenthood, where it's the ultimate teamwork. You know, it's a push and pull. One's going to be down, one's got to be up. One's got to be up, one's got to be down. We've got to try and sacrifice, lift together. It's not one or the other. You know, we're playing different roles, but we're keeping each other afloat. To raise a beautiful family.
Yeah, it was really good for him to say that too. And because she's like, I think was part of her issues was like super painful periods, like couldn't get out of bed. And he was like obviously going through like some severe, like what we call like die off from, you know, the antimicrobial herbs that we had him on to balance his gut. And so he's like in the toilet, like constantly got the runs, like headache, like gut. He's like, it felt like there was like knives in my stomach. And she's like, see, that's what I would go through every month.
Oh my God.
You know? Yeah, well, I like to add an anecdote to that. We were in white privilege alert. We were in have to do that now.
No, I thought we weren't doing that.
We were traveling in Italy and on a boat. And
with a chef
everyone,
and a nanny.
No, didn't have that much. But this was a really rocky boat, and everyone on the boat got really bad motion sickness, like really bad. And Togger's never had that before. And he was green, like so green. And he was just like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm like, this is morning sickness.
Yeah,
like
totally.
He's like, are you serious? I'm like, this is exactly what it feels like that, but all the time. Yeah. And it just doesn't, it's like relentless. And then one day it just stops and you're like, what the fuck was that? But he was like, oh my God, he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, and that was, we were 3 kids deep at that stage. And he was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We've had 2 since, and he totally forgets that situation. But I should bring it up. Yeah. But at the time, like, the amount of apology and sympathy I got, I was like, oh, thanks, babe.
Yeah, totally.
Cheers.
Yeah, awesome.
I know.
It's a journey.
But we do see a massive disconnect. Don't we?
Massive.
Yeah.
It's probably like one of the biggest, I believe it's one of the biggest issues with infertility. It's like the spiritual side of it and the welcoming in of the spirit, and just that disconnect between the partners. And like, I think that then manifests into physical issues, right? So it's a tricky one. Like Spirit Babies is an amazing book for anyone out there wanting to kind of learn more about it. But I think, really like that's part of our practice for sure with our couples is like challenging them on these things and like, are you actually living a life? Like a lot of the time people aren't living a life that's welcoming to a baby. Like they're traveling all the time, or they're, you know,
overworking,
over-exercising, and they're like, I want to have a baby. It's like, okay, well, when you've got a baby, you can't do any of this stuff, right? Like you're going to be on your in your bed, just like putting your baby on your boob. Like, So
are you okay with you? Are you okay in your own head? Are you like, because we need to start practicing that now. You know what I mean? And, you know, for the males out there, how many males do we talk to that are not willing to make any changes?
I know.
Yeah.
And 30% of fertility issues is the male sperm.
Yeah.
It's a large percentage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
30% of miscarriages also because of the male sperm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like you'll meet men and they just will not.
Super closed.
They won't even change anything in their diet. They won't go to bed earlier. Like we're talking, they won't have. They just will not do a thing. Super closed off. Don't want to know it's them. And I reckon it's a massive challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a huge one.
That's interesting. Do you ever see, I mean, I guess if you're taking people through fertility, do you then continue through pregnancy? And have you seen any, discourse within the couple on what should happen birth-wise, and how have you addressed that?
Yeah, so a lot of the time our clients will then start with me for pregnancy, because I obviously do pregnancy postpartum care as well. So it's really cool because I feel like if they've taken the ownership, like it's pretty much similar to what I was saying with my own story. You've taken the ownership preconception, you take the ownership in your pregnancy because you're like, I want to have the healthiest baby possible. And then you're like, it feels like these women just are open then to like natural physiological birth. They're questioning things like vaccines a lot more. They're questioning, they want to breastfeed. It's because they've seen like the impact and they've like looked at it from like a health perspective of like, okay, cool, this is what I this is what I want for my baby now. So it is interesting. But, yeah, there is generally speaking, and, like, we can talk from our own experience here, it's like a lot of the time, especially if the man hasn't been involved that much in the preconception phase, I find he's more likely to be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with home birth. You know, and this is a generalization, but we can even talk from our own experience. Like, we obviously were quite health aware, and we were like, we want to have a vaginal birth because obviously that means all the microbiome gets passed on to the baby.
That's me being very practical.
Very practical. And he was like, but, you know, the first baby, like, do we really want to have that at home? Like, you know, should we, you know, just, you know, we were going to see this guy in Melbourne called Lionel Vaginal. And he, like, guarantees.
He is famous, mate. I have heard about Vaginal Lionel, like, from so many people.
He's like, I
rang up straight away. Like, as soon as I was like, yeah, Mike, how much is it for
we'll get on our private health. We're like, this is who we want. We just want a vaginal birth. But, like, as you guys know.
This is before we were pregnant too.
Yeah, this is way before we were pregnant. We didn't know anything. But
that's what I'm like though.
Yeah, exactly. But he obviously had to do some work. But if you haven't done that work, or you hadn't had those hard conversations preconception or even, you know, during the pregnancy, and you're not, like, working on yourself, like, it's up to him ultimately. Like, if he's not okay with it, I'm just, like, living in my power, right? I'm like, I'm having a home birth. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But so many women are, like, trying, like, to obviously, like, counteract for their husband. And they're like, maybe, yeah.
And I think that something that isn't spoken about enough, I mean, and I definitely placated to Togga not feeling comfortable. I mean, and personally, I hadn't done enough research for my first pregnancy to really know that I wanted a home birth, but I just hated hospitals. I'm like, I just want to be
the same.
Like, I hope this baby just comes out, like, just accidentally somewhere, like anywhere but a hospital. Like, I just don't want to be in a hospital, but at the same time, I was like, oh, safest place to be. And Togga was the same. Yeah, right.
I love the little, like, safe place to be.
So obviously we wanted to keep our baby safe. We went to the hospital.
Yeah.
But, you know, second time round when we'd done a hypnobirthing course, which was an actual education, not just, you know, Juno knocked up and whatever
I was like, what like research did you actually her birth stories dropped today.
Yeah.
But she's like, yeah, I did research. I watched Juno knocked up and
what to expect when you're expecting.
And I was like, all the Hollywood films.
Groundbreaking, babe.
Nailed my education session. But yeah, so when we did a hypnobirthing course and Togga saw, like, I think there were 4 videos in that course where it was just women pushing their babies out, no one else touching their babies, no one touching them. The babies just came out of their bodies.
Yeah.
He was like, it's not as bell and whistles as, like, we did the first time around.
Totally.
So, yeah, which is how all the rest of our babies ended up just being shot into his arms. And
Love that.
But also, like, how incredible is it for women to have your man be like putting you up on that pedestal, being like, if you like, what am I trying to say is, like, firstly, 2 parts to it is, like, he sees you do that.
Yep.
There's no coming off from that.
No.
It's like you are just like
you nailed it.
You nailed it.
Changed me
are
forever.
the
Goddess. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I cannot look at you any differently. And then realizing that, like, as a team and as a couple, like, that's, you just experience that together in unity with no external.
It is like the perfect setup for parenthood. Like,
It is.
honestly.
Yeah.
It is.
And for your relationship.
Totally. Yeah.
Because that's how women need to be seen. But also when the father just drops back and is the safe.
That.
Yeah, allows it, but also is the full protector of the space in which this is happening and doesn't allow anyone to fuck it up.
Yeah.
That's the contribution on that side. It's
and
like
it's the full trust in her.
And the full trust
like,
in each other.
That's so much, relationship building just in the birth space alone. It's incredible.
And even the pregnancy too, because, like, even just, you know, trusting her to be like, I don't need a scan. I don't need anyone to tell me my baby's okay. You know, just little things like that. And him being like, yeah, I trust you. Like, you're the one carrying the baby, you know.
Men want to control.
They do. Yeah.
yeah.
That's like the toxic masculine, right?
Toxic masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in this situation, like, this is where we love just chatting to couples because we can have that influence on them.
Yeah.
And just planting that seed.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like imagine seeing your wife just in all her glory birthing like
your baby.
Yeah, your baby. But I definitely think it takes like you were similar. You needed to watch some births.
I watched like 30 births.
Yeah.
Our midwife would come around and show us like 3 or 4 births from every month. And I'd just watch like, so when it got to the point of Bel giving birth, I had zero apprehension at all. Yeah. I don't know, have you seen the photo on Bel's Instagram? Did you put it up?
Oh my God, that's where you're like...
Yeah. Bel's like over the pool crowning and then like, my head's in between her legs just like watching everything happen. I loved it.
Yeah, you loved it.
Yeah, that's so good.
But yeah, we're trying, like, I reckon that's the hardest part to have impact on. Where it's the most challenging but most rewarding when we can get like that male and like the male partner and the female on the same page about like what they're doing and bringing him in more, because I find, you know, from what like I try and have that impact, but I find it's pretty difficult at the moment, and I'd love to be able to create more of a cultural change across. After watching Bel's birth, I knew something had to change in men. Yeah, like I was like, oh wow, like, and every man you speak to that sees a birth, you just talk about like, my mind is blown. How can everyone not know this? And I remember after the birth, remember me telling
our friends who hadn't had babies, like he would be like just telling the birth story like with every detail of like what happened, and I could just see their like eyes glazing over. I'm like, they don't care, doll. They don't get it. But he was just on this high of like all of the beautiful birth hormones and was just wanting to just share how incredible it was.
But I still feel like it.
You do, yeah. He's super passionate about it.
I still want to get men to understand it more, so then we can bridge that gap.
But what's happening in society is like obviously the complete opposite. These poor men are getting traumatized watching possibly the most horrific things happen to their wife, which in my opinion a lot of the time is abuse.
Yeah.
And then they're in their mind they're meant to be protecting her, but they're like, oh, the doctors saved her.
Yeah.
So it's this like complete confusion.
Told that, but it doesn't feel like that.
It doesn't feel like that. So they're like traumatized by it.
Yeah.
And then who do they tell? Like all their mates, like, you know, like this is fucked, you know? And then like it's kind of that rewriting of that.
So disempowering.
So disempowering.
Can I bring out one more podcast that I actually shared on my Instagram not that long ago with Mary Harrington? And they were talking on that this is not like a naturally minded, like two individuals who are not like naturally minded so much, but they were talking about how for men, men don't connect to the baby until later down the track, like maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months postpartum, like when they can interact with the child, and that's when they build the connection. But I would argue that men who are in the birth space and in a birth space that is a loving environment where there are oxytocin pheromones just flying around the room and they get to witness that, really, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And we're in a sauna here, so that's
saying
here we go. Yeah. Where they just experience the reverence and just the absolute awe from, depending on how you birth, screaming, raging, I'm taking my own experiences, and like, roaring this baby out, and then the pure peace and bliss that comes out of that. And like for Toga, he has delivered 3 of our 4 children. And he's like a completely soppy mess afterwards, but so in love. And the kids, when they walk into that space, because they come in quite soon after, they even feel it, and they hold, like everyone just holds this beautiful reverence of what's just happened.
Yep.
And the connection's there. Yeah. Like straight away you're connected to the mother that just did that, you're connected to the child, and like that, every child should, or every baby being born should be in that environment and grow up in that. Because if that's the start, and your dad is connected to you straight away because what he has witnessed is the fucking miracle of birth, it's something that every baby really deserves. And I think that when you've got couples who, you know, the husband or partner is like, look, I just don't feel safe. We need to be in a hospital, blah, blah, blah. And there's a disconnect between the two. I've heard of it going the other way around where the husband's like, I don't feel safe in a hospital. And the woman's like, we're going to a hospital. It's like the safest place. So, I mean, it happens both ways, but like, honestly, the best environment you can be in is where everyone gets to experience that natural physiological birth.
I know there'd be like a quantum biological terminology for that, but
yeah, but it is, and then everyone is so acutely tuned into that baby, everyone totally. In that birth space, and that's exactly what every baby needs to grow up in. So, anyway, I thought I'd just.
I think it's like I'm glad we went off on a tangent and went from like how to get pregnant to like this, because I just feel like when
you close there, my brain's so there right now. Like
I think when you make the decision to like either work with people like you guys or be like, hey, something's not right here, or I'm young and I'm going to invest in this, or I'm going to just take responsibility for myself. I'm not going to make these choices. I'm going to do this instead. Like these are kind of. This is the bonus that you kind of end up living, this state of bliss, and it's almost effortless, right? Because you're just in alignment, whereas other people who are very disembodied and disconnected and dissociated with life itself often are the ones experiencing the shortfalls and the negative impacts and the shit show stories and all of that. And so
you have to rely on your mental capacity to connect with the baby. And I mean,
well, not just that, like your marriage breaks down, your children's, ability to thrive. And, it's a big picture thing. And I know you guys are so on board with like looking at things from such a bigger zoomed out perspective and be like, okay, well, it's not just fertility, is it? It's like, fucking life. It's like, how do you want to be? How do you want to live? How do you want to feel? Like, what does your child, what does their future look like? Are you, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just started to think, like you said, take responsibility was a massive thing. But sometimes, I don't know if you see this in society a lot of time. It's like, people aren't even thinking about like what they want for their kids. It's almost like they're along for the ride.
Well, people are very selfish, right? That's why we're not having kids when we're 20, because we're influenced by bloody Billie Eilish or whoever's out there wearing tracksuit pants and whatever it is. It's like we're very self-centered and we actually haven't been raised to think. And that's probably even, I mean, we could probably get into this even for longer, but it's even... that's
delayed adulthood is like it's a huge thing.
But we're coddling our kids more than ever now. Like some of them are developing like these weird self-righteous disorders almost because of the way we're... So like it's probably just prolonging...
Yeah.
Making our kids even more self-centered to the point where they're not even going to be like breaking through and breaking down this... Becoming more aware is probably even going to be harder, but
yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. You sort of say like, so we're menstruating earlier, but we're maturing later, and like we lack a lot of like. I'm not saying everyone does, but I think it's going to be a challenge for my son to go through adversity. You know what I mean? And that like, there's a good saying. It says like, we want to give our kids everything that we didn't have, but we forget to give them what we did have, and that was like some struggle. So men are now. I know men are definitely maturing later because it's everything's given to them. Yeah. So like it's an interesting sort of like paradigm if you think of us like, a fertility starting earlier, so it's going to probably finish later. But as a maturing mentally and emotionally and everything like that, we're maturing later. Men, like if a female wanted to get pregnant at 21, 22, how many males out there are ready to take on and be a father?
Totally. And that's what I was actually thinking about when you were talking earlier, Keshia, because I was like, I've got a couple of single friends who are like our age, we're like 33, one's even a little bit older, and like they're meeting these guys who are like 30, 34 even, like
40.
Man-child.
And literally they're like, oh, I don't want anything serious. And I'm just like, what? Like, how old are you going to be? Like, don't you want to have kids?
But that's something that I hear a lot too. Like, it's so cool now to be single and traveling the world and partying and
free.
And even into your 40s, it's so cool. But when you are 50, 60, 70,
you're going to be lonely as fuck.
It's going to be really sad existing.
Because you're not going to have any kids to live your life through. And this is the thing, sorry, but this
vicariously
is the thing.
through them. Like, you're going to be bored.
Yeah, it sounds like
you literally get to relive your childhood through your kids. But you're not even going to have kids.
Yeah, but and your grandchildren. Dude, I am so excited for grandchildren.
Yeah, so
I am
my sister-in-law. She's so excited.
I'm honing in on my granny skills. Like, you should see me knitting furiously for children. I am going to be on it. Like, crocheting blankets. Yeah. Like, I am
you'll be like the postpartum
I'm
lady.
I'm going to be like a 40-year-old granny, you know?
And you bet our kids are going to want to have nothing to do with it.
We don't have. They're still going to resent us.
Like, we don't have kids until we're 40, and we do it through IVF, so we're all good.
Actually, I have a surrogate robot.
I've got a womb robot.
Yeah, we don't do pregnancy now. We put it in the lab.
Mate,
that's
just
stressful.
Before we go off on that tangent, real conspiracy.
I don't think it's a conspiracy.
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
Nah.
I've seen shit.
But when
I've seen some shit
online.
Have you, Bel?
Online.
On the dark web.
On a movie once. Exactly.
But when you're in your 80s and 90s, and this is actually something that Stephen Shaw talks about as well, like the abuse that happens to all these single old people in homes are getting abused because they've got no one to come in and check on them. And the abuse rates of the elderly are astronomical, especially in places where there are way too many elderly for the homes that they have for them. Yep. So it's just, cool in your 30s and your 40s, maybe even into your 50s, being a rock star, so cool, but it's going to get really sad really fast.
But legacy, leaving that behind. And me and Brenton have this incredible vision, and we're getting closer and closer, of being up on our mountain with our big fig tree, with our 30-person big hardwood table that he has hand built from the trees that he's milled down there. And we've got all our animals pressure. And we're no pressure, babe. We need this. All our animals, we've harvested them, we've grown us, and all our kids and grandkids and their partners and what a vision. I just hold that so close to me because that's goals for me.
Totally. Yeah, that's drive, right?
That is
exactly. That is the
that's
ultimate.
Everything. It's abundance, it's health, it's happiness. It's I've done something awesome in this life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's funny. I don't know if you were going to say something, but I just think I find parenting is difficult. But every single day, my son changes and does something, and it lights me up every single day. I'm like, I'm going to get this for the next 40 years of my life. You know what I mean? It's never going to stop. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I just can't imagine how much time people are going to waste or miss out on being sucked into the social paradigm.
Totally. Yeah. I wish I met you a little bit earlier, so we started. Started.
But I also don't think I was
procreating
mature.
earlier.
Yeah.
We didn't meet each other till 27? Yeah. 28. Yeah.
Hold the vision for triplets then.
No, I'm good.
Hyper. All right. Well, on that note, guys, we better wrap this up.
Yep.
Where can people find you if they want to seek out your advice or just follow along your journey?
So we've just started our own Instagram for Cultivate Your Fertility. So
Cultivating.
Yes. Oh my God, we did the wrong thing. That's
you guys don't want clients, do you?
We wanted to call it Cultivate Your Fertility, but that name was just taken through Google.
Cultivating. Okay, yeah. So Cultivating Your Fertility on Instagram, and then on my personal Instagram is Bel White Nutrition.
And mine is Life Athlete Health.
Amazing.
Gorgeous.
We'll send people there. We'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks everyone for joining us for this Joe Rogan length podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
We would talk longer, but we're all severely sweating.
Yeah. Oh my God. The beads of sweat have been full on. All right. Peace out, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.